Thanksgiving always makes me nervous. It's not the food or the family talk, it's my brother, Ethan. A few days ago, Mom texted me, "Dinner at 6, don't be late." I stared at that message for a while, wondering if I should even go. Every year, Ethan finds a way to make me feel small. He calls me broke, jokes about my old truck, and acts like he's the hero of the family. Before I tell you how I got my revenge, hit that like button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. The truth is, no one knows what I've done for him. For almost 5 years, I've been paying off his credit card debt, $52,800. Every month, I sent the payments quietly, thinking I was helping my brother get his life together. He promised he'd pay me back when things got better. They never did. Sometimes I wonder if he even remembers. I wiped the sweat from my hands and looked around my small apartment. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I took a deep breath and looked back at Mom's message. Maybe this Thanksgiving, things will be different. Maybe it's time to stop being quiet. I picked up my keys and whispered, "All right, Mom. I'll be there." I still remember the night Ethan called me, 5 years ago. His voice shook like a scared kid. He said he was in a bit of trouble with his credit cards. When I asked how much, he laughed softly, then said the number, $52,800. I almost dropped the phone. He begged me to help him. He said he just needed a few months to get back on his feet. I didn't even think twice. He was my brother. That's what family does, right? Back then, I was working 2 jobs, stocking shelves at night and fixing fences during the day. I didn't have much, but I found a way. I called the bank, arranged payment plans, and started sending money every month. It wasn't easy. Some nights I skipped dinner just to make sure his bill got paid on time. Ethan thanked me at first. He said I was a lifesaver. Then the calls stopped. The thank yous disappeared too. Still, I kept paying. Quietly. Month after month. I never told Mom or Dad. They already thought Ethan was the golden boy. I didn't want to ruin that image. At least, not yet. Ethan made me a promise the day I agreed to help him. We were sitting on the back porch, the sky fading orange. He looked nervous, like a kid caught doing something wrong. "I'll pay you back, Paul. Every cent," he said. "You'll see. Just give me some time." I believed him. Back then, I always believed him. If you like our revenge stories, please subscribe for more. We drop powerful news stories every week, filled with truth, emotion, and justice. Don't miss the next one. And remember, some stories hurt, but they heal too. Subscribe now, and join the journey. He shook my hand like it meant something. He even wrote it down on a piece of notebook paper, his signature at the bottom, just to make it official. I still have that note tucked inside a folder in my desk drawer. The ink has faded, but the words haven't. For the first year, he sent me small amounts here and there. $50 one month, maybe $100 the next. Then the money stopped coming. When I asked about it, he laughed it off. Said he was restructuring his life, whatever that meant. I didn't push him. I didn't want to fight. Instead, I just kept my promise, to help him. I thought loyalty meant staying quiet. Now, looking back, I realize that promise was one-sided. He never planned to keep his word. But soon, he'd learn I keep mine. I always wanted a truck. Not a fancy one, just something strong and steady that could pull my tools and handle a long day's work. I even had one picked out at the dealership, a used blue Ford with a few scratches on the side. The salesman said I could drive it home after a small down payment. I remember how excited I was. I almost signed the papers. Then my phone buzzed. A reminder for Ethan's next payment. It was due that same week. I stood there for a while, staring at the numbers. I could buy my truck, or I could help my brother stay out of trouble. I closed the folder and walked away from the dealership. That night, I sent the payment instead. A week later, Ethan posted a picture online, him at a concert, front row, smiling like he didn't have a care in the world. I tried not to let it bother me, but it did. That blue Ford would have been my first real thing for myself. Instead, it became another quiet sacrifice. I told myself it was fine, that good things come around. But deep down, I wondered if I'd ever stop being the helper. Mom and Dad always saw Ethan as the shining star. He had the smile, the charm, and the easy words that made people trust him. When we were kids, he'd talk his way out of trouble while I took the blame. Nothing really changed when we grew up. Mom would brag about Ethan's big business ideas. Dad would say, "That boy's going places." When they talked about me, it was softer, like they didn't want to say too much. "Paul's doing his best," Mom would say, as if hard work was something to pity. They never knew how much I did for Ethan. Every holiday, he'd show up with fancy clothes and new gadgets. They thought he earned it all himself. I just sat there, smiling, while they praised him for a success I had quietly built. Sometimes I wanted to tell them the truth, to shout that their perfect son wouldn't even have a clean credit record without me. But I held it in. I didn't want their sympathy. I just wanted their respect. And maybe, deep down, I wanted Ethan to earn it too. But he never did. He only got better at pretending. It was a Tuesday afternoon when my phone rang. The number on the screen made my stomach twist. It was the bank. "Mr. Scott," the woman said kindly, "we're calling to let you know the final payment on the account ending in 2187 will be complete next month. Congratulations." For a moment, I didn't say anything. My throat felt tight. 5 years. 5 long years of extra shifts, skipped meals, and late nights, all for a debt that wasn't even mine. "Thank you," I finally said. "Please send me a full record of every payment." After I hung up, I just sat there. I looked around my small apartment, the old couch, the quiet walls, the life I'd built around silence. It was almost over. Ethan's debt would soon be gone, and maybe, just maybe, I could start thinking about myself again. Then a thought hit me hard. Ethan never once asked how I was doing. Not once. I'd carried his weight for years, and he probably didn't even remember. I opened my laptop and checked the calendar. Thanksgiving was only a week away. For the first time in a long while, I smiled. Maybe it was time for the truth. All week, I couldn't stop thinking about that call from the bank. One more payment, and Ethan's debt would be gone. Just like that, 5 years of work erased into silence. I thought about skipping Thanksgiving again, like last year. It would have been easier. I could have stayed home, watched a movie, maybe ordered a pizza. But every time I pictured Ethan sitting at that table, bragging about his hard-earned success, something inside me burned. He didn't earn it. I did. I walked over to my desk and pulled out the old folder, the one with every payment slip, every email, and that faded note Ethan signed years ago. The proof. For 5 years, I told myself I was doing the right thing by keeping quiet. But maybe silence wasn't kindness, it was just fear. I placed the folder in my backpack. My heart felt heavy, but my mind was clear. This year, I wasn't going to sit and smile while he made jokes about me being broke. This year, the truth was coming to dinner too. I zipped up my bag and whispered to myself. "No more secrets, Ethan. Not this time." Thanksgiving Day came cold and gray. I left my apartment early, the folder tucked safely inside my backpack. The drive to my parents' house took about an hour. I kept the radio off and let my thoughts fill the quiet. When I pulled into the driveway, Ethan's shiny black car was already there. I almost laughed, it figured he'd show up early to make an entrance. The house looked the same as always, yellow lights glowing through the windows, smoke from Dad's old grill, and the smell of turkey drifting into the yard. Mom met me at the door with a hug. "Paul. You made it," she said, smiling wide. "Wouldn't miss it," I replied, trying to sound calm. Inside, laughter echoed from the living room. Ethan was there, of course, leaning back on the couch, wearing a new leather jacket. "Look who finally showed up," he said. "Our hardworking little brother." I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. "Good to see you too, Ethan." He didn't notice the folder under my arm or the look in my eyes. He had no idea this year's Thanksgiving wasn't just another dinner. It was the start of something different. Dinner wasn't even ready yet, and the comparisons had already started. That's how it always went. Mom was showing Ethan's new pictures from his business trip. He was standing next to fancy cars, wearing suits that probably cost more than my rent. Dad nodded proudly. "You've really made something of yourself, son." Ethan grinned, glancing at me. "Well, you just have to work smart, not hard. Isn't that right, Paul?" I gave a small smile. "Guess so." He smirked. "Still working at that hardware store?" "Yeah," I said. "Still there." Mom jumped in before it got awkward. "Paul's always been steady. You can count on him." Ethan laughed. "Yeah, you can count on him for a lot of things." My hands tightened under the table. He didn't even realize how true that was. I looked around the room, at the polished table, the golden lights, the people I'd kept the truth from. They thought I was the brother who couldn't keep up. The one who never aimed high. If only they knew how high Ethan would have fallen without me holding him up. But that night, I didn't say a word. Not yet. When Mom finally called everyone to the table, the smell of roasted turkey filled the house. She'd set everything perfectly, candles, silver dishes, and that old tablecloth she only used once a year. For a second, it almost felt peaceful. We bowed our heads while Dad said grace. His voice was calm and steady, just like always. But when we lifted our heads, the peace faded fast. Ethan started talking before anyone even picked up a fork. "So, I just closed another big deal last week," he said loudly. "It's been a good year." Mom clapped her hands. "That's wonderful, honey." Then she looked at me. "And how's work, Paul?" "Busy," I said simply. "Lots of repairs before winter." Ethan chuckled. "Still fixing fences, huh? Man, I'd lose my mind doing that." I smiled. "It's honest work." "Sure," he said, sipping his drink. "But don't you ever want more?" His words hung in the air like smoke. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, waiting for me to laugh or make a joke. But I didn't. I just looked at Ethan, calm and steady, and said, "Sometimes, more isn't better." He didn't get it. Not yet. Dinner went on, the way family dinners do, stories, laughter, and the clatter of silverware. I stayed quiet, cutting my turkey, nodding when someone spoke. I thought maybe this year would stay peaceful. I was wrong. Ethan leaned back in his chair, holding his wine glass like a trophy. "You know, Paul," he said with a grin, "you should let me teach you a thing or two about money. You've been working your whole life, and you still drive that old truck." I smiled politely. "It still runs." He laughed. "Barely. You're just too cheap to buy something decent." Mom gave him a small look, but didn't say much. Dad chuckled under his breath. I felt my jaw tighten. I wanted to remind him that his last, decent, car got repossessed before I helped him out. But I bit my tongue. Ethan wasn't done. "Man, you should come work for me sometime," he said. "I could show you how to actually make money." My heart thudded. Every word from him was another spark on dry wood. I forced a smile. You might be surprised what I already know. He smirked again. Yeah. About what? I just said, debt. The table went quiet for a second after I said that word, debt. Then, like a delayed reaction, Ethan burst out laughing. It wasn't a chuckle, it was that loud, showy kind that demands attention. Debt, he said between laughs. Come on, man. Don't tell me you've been keeping score or something. Everyone joined in. Even Dad cracked a grin, though he looked unsure why. Mom shook her head, muttering something about brothers and their jokes. I smiled along, pretending it didn't sting. But inside, the anger boiled. They thought it was funny, like I was the fool, the broke one, the quiet accountant who couldn't afford to live large. Ethan lifted his glass toward me. Don't worry, Paul. I'll lend you a few bucks if you ever need to buy something nice for once. The laughter came again, sharper this time. I wanted to stand up, slam my hands on the table, and shout the truth, that I'd been paying off his loans for 3 years, that his nice things were my silent sacrifice. But not tonight. I just said, good to know, and finished my drink. If they wanted to laugh now, they could. Because soon, I'd have the last one. The laughter faded, but the sting stayed. I kept eating, slow and quiet, while Ethan kept talking. He bragged about his new car, his investments, even a vacation he had planned for Christmas. Every word felt heavier than the one before. Then he turned to me again. So, Paul, he said, smirking, still living in that tiny apartment? You ever think about, I don't know, growing up a little? I set my fork down. It's home, I said. He grinned. Yeah, but man, you've gotta stop being so broke. That word hit harder than I expected. Broke. Like I was nothing. Mom frowned. Ethan, that's enough. But he wasn't done. I'm just saying, some people need to learn how to manage their money better. Something inside me snapped. I looked him right in the eye and said, calm as ever, you're right. Some people do. He laughed, not realizing what was coming. I reached for my backpack on the floor and placed it beside my chair. You want to talk about money, Ethan? I said, voice low. Let's talk about it. For the first time all night, he looked nervous. Good. Dinner was about to change. Everyone went quiet when I said that. Even the sound of forks stopped. Ethan blinked, trying to keep his smile. What's that supposed to mean? He asked. I reached into my backpack and pulled out the old folder. The same one that had followed me through every sacrifice, every long night, every bill. I placed it on the table gently, right next to the mashed potatoes. This, I said, opening it, is what it means. Ethan laughed nervously. Come on, man. What's this, your tax papers? No, I said. Yours. I slid out the first statement. 5 years ago, you owed $52,800 in credit card debt. You called me. You begged me to help. Mom gasped. Dad's fork dropped onto his plate. And I did, I continued. Every month, every payment, until last week. It's finally paid off. Ethan's face turned pale. That's not. I laid down the signed note he'd written. Your signature, I said quietly. Your promise. No one spoke. The silence was louder than the laughter had been. I leaned back in my chair, finally breathing easy. I guess now, I said, we can talk about who's really broke. Ethan's face went red, the kind of red that isn't from embarrassment, it's from panic. He pushed his chair back a little and forced a laugh. This is ridiculous, Paul. You're making it sound like some big secret. I didn't say anything. I just looked at him. Mom glanced between us. Ethan, is that true? He waved a hand. It's not what it looks like, Mom. Paul's just overreacting. I paid him back ages ago. Dad picked up one of the statements. His eyes narrowed. These payments came from Paul's account. Ethan shifted in his seat. Well, yeah, at first. But it was a loan. He wanted to help. I kept my voice calm. A loan I finished paying off last week. A loan. The room went silent again. The turkey sat cold on everyone's plates. Ethan stood up. This is family business. We don't need to make it dramatic. Mom's voice shook. You let your brother carry that for 5 years? He tried to smile. It wasn't that bad. I looked right at him. It was for me. For the first time that night, Ethan didn't have a clever answer. And I didn't need one. No one moved. You could have heard the ticking clock from the living room. Mom just stared at Ethan, her eyes wet. Dad leaned back in his chair, rubbing his forehead like he couldn't believe what he'd just heard. Paul, Mom whispered, you paid all of it? I nodded. Every cent. He said he needed help. I thought I was doing the right thing. Ethan sighed, trying to look calm. It's not like I forced him. He offered. I just didn't think he'd actually keep it up that long. Dad slammed his hand on the table. That's not the point. You let him sacrifice for you and took credit for being successful. You lied to all of us. Ethan looked around, desperate for backup, but no one spoke. Finally, Mom shook her head. You always made him feel small, Ethan. All this time, he was the one holding you up. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just sat there, quiet. Ethan muttered, you're making me look bad. I met his eyes and said softly, you did that yourself. The room stayed still. The truth had landed, hard. And for once, Ethan couldn't talk his way out. Ethan stood up so fast his chair scraped across the floor. You know what? I don't need this, he snapped. You're all acting like I'm some kind of villain. Dad frowned. You used your brother, Ethan. He pointed at me. He didn't have to help. No one forced him to. I stayed calm. You're right. I wasn't forced. I just believed you cared enough to do the same one day. His face twisted. You think you're some kind of hero? You're just bitter because I did better than you. Mom gasped. Enough, she said sharply. You lied to us. You lied to him. Ethan grabbed his jacket from the back of the chair. Fine. If you all want to worship St. Paul, go ahead. He stormed toward the door. For a second, I thought he'd stop, maybe apologize. But he didn't. The door slammed behind him so hard the windows rattled. The silence that followed was heavy, sad, but also freeing. Mom sat down, shaking her head. I don't even know who he is anymore. I finally exhaled. Now you do, I said quietly. For once, Ethan had walked out. And I didn't follow. After Ethan stormed out, no one spoke for a long time. The sound of the front door still echoed in my mind, mixed with everything I'd held back for years. Dad finally broke the silence. You should have told us, Paul. I nodded slowly. I didn't want to embarrass him. I thought I was protecting the family. Mom sighed, her hands trembling as she reached for her glass. You were protecting him, not yourself. You always do. Her words hit me harder than I expected. She wasn't angry, she just sounded tired, like a truth she'd ignored had finally caught up. I'm sorry you had to carry that alone, she said softly. I shrugged. It's done now. I just couldn't sit here and pretend anymore. Dad pushed his plate away. You did right, son. Maybe a little late, but right. For the first time in years, I saw something in his eyes I hadn't before, respect. Mom reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Let's eat before it all gets cold," she said with a shaky smile. We tried to finish dinner, but the food didn't taste the same. The truth had changed everything, especially me. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat alone on the porch with a cup of coffee. The air was cold, and the stars looked sharper than usual. My phone buzzed beside me. I almost ignored it, until I saw his name. Ethan. The message was short. "You didn't have to humiliate me in front of them. I'll pay you back. Just give me time." I stared at the screen for a long moment. The same promise, just written instead of spoken. 5 years ago, I would have believed it. But now, the words felt empty, like a song I'd heard too many times. I typed back slowly. "It's not about the money anymore." Then I hit send and set the phone down. A few minutes later, another message came through. "You think you're better than me now?" I didn't reply. I didn't need to. For the first time in a long while, I felt light. No more lies. No more hiding. The truth was out there, and it wasn't mine to carry alone anymore. I finished my coffee, looked up at the stars, and whispered, "Finally." 2 days after Thanksgiving, I heard a knock on my apartment door. It was early, too early for anyone I knew. When I opened it, Ethan was standing there. No smile this time. Just tired eyes and hands shoved deep in his pockets. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. I stepped aside. He looked around the small place like it was the first time he'd really seen it. The cracked lamp, the old couch, the stack of bills on the counter, all the things I'd lived with while paying off his mistakes. "I didn't come to fight," he said finally. "I just didn't think you'd actually do it." "Do what?" I asked. "Tell them. Show them everything." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I guess I thought you'd always cover for me." "I used to," I said. "Not anymore." He nodded slowly. "I messed up." "Yeah," I said. "You did." He looked at me, searching for forgiveness, maybe pity. But I didn't have either to give. Before he left, he said softly, "You really are the better man, Paul." When the door closed behind him, I finally breathed. Better? No. Just done being quiet. After Ethan left, the apartment felt strangely peaceful. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying someone else's weight. No reminders. No payments. Just quiet. I sat by the window, watching the morning light creep across the floor. I thought about all the things I'd missed because I was too busy helping him, weekends, friends, even that old blue truck I'd dreamed of. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the folder one last time. The papers were wrinkled and worn, marked with fingerprints and time. Every page told a story of patience, sacrifice, and silence. Then I reached for the lighter I kept for candles. I held the corner of the first sheet to the flame. It curled, blackened, and vanished into soft gray ash. I didn't burn it out of anger. I burned it because I was done living in the shadow of someone else's mistakes. When the last paper was gone, I leaned back and smiled. For years, I thought being quiet made me strong. But now I knew, sometimes strength means speaking. And sometimes it means letting go. The debt was paid. The silence ended. I finally had peace. A week after Thanksgiving, I went back to work at the hardware store. Everything looked the same, the shelves, the tools, the same customers asking about paint colors. But something inside me felt different. For years, I'd walked around carrying a secret that weighed me down. Now it was gone. Every breath felt lighter, every sound sharper. During lunch break, I drove past the old car dealership. The blue Ford truck was gone, sold long ago, but I stopped anyway. The salesman recognized me. "Still thinking about that truck?" he asked. I smiled. Maybe something newer this time. He grinned. You've earned it. That night, I went home and filled out a form for a small business loan. Not to help someone else, but for me. I'd been fixing fences for others my whole life. Maybe it was time to build something of my own. As I signed my name at the bottom, I realized it was the same shaky signature Ethan had once written on that note. The difference was, I meant mine. I didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time, that didn't scare me. This time, the future was mine to build. It was a quiet Sunday morning when I got another knock on my door. I half expected a delivery, but when I opened it, Ethan was there again, this time holding a small envelope. He looked different. No fancy jacket, no fake grin. Just tired eyes and a shaky breath. I owe you more than money, he said softly. I didn't say anything, just stepped aside and let him in. He sat down at the kitchen table and slid the envelope toward me. Inside was a check, not for the full amount, but enough to mean something. It's a start, he said. I can't pay it all back yet. But I will. I stared at the check, then at him. It's not about the money anymore, Ethan. I know, he whispered. But it's the only way I know to start fixing things. For the first time, his voice didn't sound like a performance. It sounded real. I nodded slowly. Then start here. Be honest. With them, with yourself. He met my eyes. I will. When he left, I didn't feel anger or pride, just a quiet kind of relief. Maybe forgiveness wasn't a gift for him. Maybe it was for me. Weeks passed after Ethan's visit, and something strange began to happen. He actually kept his word. He started calling Mom and Dad more often, helping out with chores, even stopping by my place just to talk. No bragging, no fake smiles. Just conversation. At first, I waited for it to fade, like every other promise he'd made. But it didn't. One afternoon, we grabbed lunch together at a small diner near my job. He told me he'd started working full-time again, paying off the rest of his bills. It feels weird, he said, stirring his coffee, doing it the right way. I smiled. Weird's good. Means it's real. He nodded. You know, I used to think helping me made you weak. But now I get it. What's that? I asked. He looked down at his cup. You weren't weak. You were strong enough to carry both of us when I couldn't even carry myself. For once, I didn't need to say anything. The silence between us wasn't awkward, it was honest. When we left the diner, he clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Thanks, Paul. For everything." And for the first time, I believed him. A year later, Thanksgiving came around again. Same table. Same house. But this time, the air felt different. Mom greeted us with her usual smile, and Dad was carving the turkey before anyone could complain about being hungry. Ethan sat across from me, no designer jacket, no loud stories. Just him. Quiet, respectful. When Mom asked how work was going, he smiled shyly. Good, he said. Still paying things off, but getting there. Dad nodded proudly. That's what matters, son. Then Mom turned to me. And you, Paul? Still working hard? I smiled. Yeah. My own business now. Small, but steady. Ethan grinned. He's being humble. I saw his truck outside, it's brand new. Everyone laughed. This time, it wasn't cruel or sharp. It was warm. After dinner, Ethan helped clean up, then looked at me. You ever think about how last year went? Sometimes, I said. Why? He smiled. I'm glad it happened. I needed it. I chuckled softly. Guess we both did. As the night quieted, I leaned back in my chair, watching my family laugh together. For years, I was the quiet one, the helper in the shadows. Now, I finally had the last laugh. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more powerful narratives, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what part hit you the hardest. Thanks for watching.